Kia ora, hello and welcome to this edition of Mainland Television News. I'm Phil Hawes. In this bulletin, Nelson MP Nick Smith returns to the Cabinet table. Local residents are being asked to help in the hunt for the great white butterfly, and Richmond residents have been advised to boil their drinking water. A boil water notice has been issued for residents on the Richmond water scheme. The notice will affect all residential, commercial and service-based properties on the scheme. The call's been sent out because of low levels of contamination detected during sampling of the source water for the Richmond water supply. The TDC says that while the source of contamination has now been isolated, the water from the Richmond water scheme has been marginally compromised. The TDC is therefore recommending that as a precaution, water should be boiled if intended for use for drinking, food preparation, utensil washing your teeth, pets or for ice. The TDC says that the notification has immediate effect and will remain in force until Monday the 28th of January when the situation will be updated. Nelson MP Nick Smith has been reinstated into Cabinet, with Prime Minister John Key handing Dr Smith the housing and conservation portfolios. I spoke to Nick Smith about his reinstatement and his new portfolios earlier this week. Nelson MP and now Cabinet Minister Nick Smith is on the line. Dr Smith, back in Cabinet, your personal feelings about the announcement?
Oh, pretty excited. You know, I had a rough 2012 year. Nice to draw a line under it. Anybody that's involved in politics aspires to be in the cabinet room. It is the engine room of the government. Good for Nelson in the sense of being able to be a strong voice in that cabinet room for our home community. Also really looking forward to both those challenges in housing and conservation.
Absolutely.
Which are both areas of which I've got some strong values that I want to see translated into good government policy.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, but first of all, in terms of your political career, Dr Smith, do you consider things to be back on track now?
Oh, I think my political career makes the Southern Alps look flat.
Right.
It's had its fair share of bumps. Politics is a bruising business, but so it should be, because there's so much at stake, Phil. And certainly, look, I'm delighted to be back in the cabinet room and with these particular challenges. All right.
Those portfolios, housing and conservation, in terms of your expertise, do you think you're positioned well to give your expertise to the government?
Well, my passion is in the area of good natural resource management, issues around infrastructure and all those issues. Now, with conservation, I would consider myself a practical conservationist, one that wants to see good balance, that if we are going to grow the economy, if we're going to create new jobs, you can't take sort of a rigid ideological point of view, but at the same time, you need to champion the values of the beaches, the parks, all those things that make New Zealand special. In housing, an enormous challenge. Phil, for the last 25 years, we have seen home ownership levels in New Zealand decline.
Yes.
I actually think it's part of the Kiwi culture and ethic that a family that works hard, on an average income, careful with their money, is able to afford a home. And I worry that the stretch financially is becoming too hard, that the price of homes has gone up significantly faster than people's incomes. Now, it's an enormously difficult problem. Previous Prime Minister Helen Clark had a housing affordability unit set up specifically in the Prime Minister's department to try and tackle it, and was not successful. You've got, on interest rates, this government's done really well. What we're going to have to do is have a really hard look at questions of land supply, the infrastructure costs, the building material costs, and of course we also have to do all that in a way that makes sure we maintain the quality of building stock. You might be able to do cheap houses in the form of tents. New Zealanders won't have a bar of that, and so the trick is good quality affordable housing, and that's going to be an enormous challenge.
Absolutely, and it's no secret that the affordability index for New Zealanders is way out of skew with many parts of the rest of the world.
Yeah, it is, and that's a worry. When we talk about the loss of New Zealanders overseas, everybody talks about income. I actually think the issue of, well, what sort of home am I able to buy in Australia as compared with New Zealand is part of that equation of keeping young talented New Zealanders committed to our country. Now, that index that came out yesterday, it's called the Demographer Report on Housing Affordability, did show that New Zealand is significantly more affordable than cities like Sydney. But it doesn't take anything away of that challenge that we've got through New Zealand, and even at home, Phil and Nelson. You look at how expensive homes are relative to people's incomes, and that is very much symptomatic of the New Zealand problem, albeit it's more focused in places like Auckland, Wellington, and the growing areas like Nelson and Queenstown. And of course we have a special challenge in Christchurch with the earthquakes and so many thousands of properties damaged, of getting the housing sector there moving as quickly as possible to get those Kiwis into homes of which they can get on with their lives.
Well, that raises another question, really. How much will Christchurch absorb the energy of the Housing Minister over the next few years?
Well, it's important. The Prime Minister has made very plain that the rebuilding of Christchurch is one of his government's key priorities, but equally, if you look at the affordability problem, it is most acute in Auckland. And so I will be putting a lot of energy into both those centres.
All right. Nick, how does it work when a minister returns after, well, some time away from the cabinet table? Does it go back to just...
You're very polite, Phil.
Yeah.
It's been called the sin bin. Well, there'll be a formal swearing in at Government House Thursday week, and that's when I'll sort of formally take up responsibility for that conservation and housing portfolio, and we'll be attending the cabinet meeting that next week after that.
Okay. Describe to us how Nelsonians benefit from having their MP around the cabinet table.
Well, I think most people appreciate that we live in a style of government, of cabinet government. The really core decisions about what takes place are in that room, and I've been privileged to be there before and think I can achieve more for Nelson and make sure that Nelson perspective is heard within the cabinet discussions. It's a two-edged sword though, Phil, if I'm honest. The truth is that the last 9 months I have been in the sin bin or on the back bench, is that you've got a lot more time.
Yes.
For your home community, and I've spent a lot of that time over the last 9 months reconnecting and feeling quite reinvigorated by the challenges that our community has, and now the opportunity to translate that into the discussions that are going to occur in John Key's cabinet.
Now, I've heard that the workload of a cabinet minister is somewhat, well, almost chaotic. It sounds like you're on the go pretty much 24/7. Have you had time to restore the batteries during your time, and I'll say it, in the sin bin?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. The role as a minister is just 24/7, absolutely intense. And to some degree, after I resigned in March, you sort of felt like this huge weight come off your shoulders. And without having to be always on edge for that next media call, always on edge wanting to know what's occurring, and keeping yourself absolutely up to speed, particularly in your own portfolio areas. So yes, I do feel absolutely reinvigorated, and looking forward to getting back into that pace.
What's the first job that you'll get on with as minister?
Yeah, the really big piece of work is going to be around housing affordability. In my view, the Resource Management Act is working against New Zealand families' interests around getting access to an affordable home. And so the number one priority will be sitting down with the officials, reading all the detail around what are the real practical steps that will change that curve of history of declining home ownership rates in New Zealand. And I'm under no illusions that there's a magic bullet or a simple formula. It's going to be a comprehensive package, and it's going to be about working that up over the months ahead so that we can make that change for New Zealand families.
All right. Is there going to be a wee celebration in the Smith household over this?
Oh, next Thursday when I get sworn in, I'll enjoy a wine, a good Nelson wine, with my family. Politics has brutal ups and and downs, and I've experienced them both. And when you've been in the trade for a long time, as I have been privileged to be, you know not to celebrate too much, because just around the corner can be some difficult times.
There are many of us that have the opinion if you're not making some waves in the political arena, then perhaps you're not doing the job well, so that would count in your favour.
I'm a little bit of a view that, yes, I need to be cautious and I need to be careful, but nor do I want to be simply keeping a seat warm. I'm in politics to make a positive change for both Nelson and in the portfolio areas I work, and there's always some element of risk.
All right. Nick Smith, can we say congratulations on your reinstatement into Cabinet, and we look forward to catching up with you in person when you're back here in Nelson.
Thanks very much, Phil. Pleased to be on Mainland.
There's been an increase in the number of cases of Campylobacter notified in the Nelson and Marlborough region over the last 3 months. Records show that there have been 85 cases notified since September, compared with 39 cases notified during the same period last year. Nelson Marlborough Medical Officer of Health, Dr Jill Sherwood, says there are no obvious links between cases, and it's likely that a number of factors may have contributed to the increase. Jill Sherwood says risk factors may include increased rainfall leading to runoff contaminating surface or well water, people not taking care with food preparation, or perhaps not always washing their hands well after toileting or after contact with animals. Jill Sherwood says it's important that people exercise care when preparing food and remember the 3 C's, that's clean, cook and chill. Campylobacter symptoms usually develop 2 to 5 days after the bacteria has been ingested and commonly include diarrhoea, abdominal pain, which could be severe, fever, fatigue, nausea and sometimes vomiting. The symptoms can last 7 to 10 days and relapses are relatively common. Anyone with those symptoms is advised to consult a doctor for advice, testing and treatment. And still with health news, up to 100,000 New Zealanders are expected to contract the new strain of norovirus this year, with the latest strain expected to cause an epidemic of gastroenteritis. The new strain, known as Sydney 2012, has caused widespread cases of nausea, vomiting and diarrhoea in Europe, with an estimated 1.2 million cases of gastro in Britain, where it's been dubbed the chunder from down under. The latest figures around influenzas in New Zealand show that 95% of cases showing up around the country are the Sydney 2012 strain. It's been estimated that 50 to 100,000 New Zealanders could contract the strain during this year's flu season. Fire services were called out to the Moutere Recreation Centre on Monday morning to attend a blaze that's thought to have started in the facility's kitchen. A staff member present at the time of the fire escaped unhurt and alerted the fire service. But despite the centre being severely damaged, as Moutere Hills Community Centre Chairman Philip Leith explains, the centre will be rebuilt. Philip, obviously the community will be pretty devastated by the fire at the community centre. What's the feeling a couple of days down the track?
I think, everybody's pretty disappointed. It's such a wonderful facility, and it's going to be out of action for a while, but it's, I'm sure it's repairable, and there's a pretty positive attitude out there in the community that we'll get it back up and running pretty smartly, and we'll be able to all use it again.
The centre was a wonderful addition to the community when it was built. I was actually living in the area when it was constructed, and I know that locals just loved and flocked there. What about the upcoming functions that were due to be held at the centre? What's going to happen to those now? Well,
we can't use any part of the building at present, and that situation could continue for some time particularly because of power supply issues. Quite a lot of the building is still intact. It's really the main function room that's really totally damaged. But the whole building is out of bounds for quite some time. The outdoor activities, the sports clubs, I'm sure that we'll be able to cope with them, with their training and games going into winter with the winter sports. And the Sarah Festival next Sunday, the 3rd, is definitely going ahead, and that will stage all of that outdoors with marquees and generators and all the rest that we need. So we won't be reliant on the building for that, but obviously quite a lot of the indoor functions have had to be shifted, and I think almost all of those have been accommodated elsewhere. We've had a lot of support from other facilities operators, and the support all around the district's been great.
Obviously it's going to be quite expensive. Where will the money come from for the reconstruct?
Well, we understand it is a ratepayer-owned facility. Tasman District Council are effectively the owners. Our board is really a subcommittee of council that we think we own it, but of course it belongs to all the ratepayers. Tasman District Council carry comprehensive building and contents insurance, and we're expecting that will totally cover it. And we've had assurances from councillors and council staff that that's the case, and they'll be dealing with the insurance companies direct, and we hope we'll see some pretty quick resolution.
Fantastic. Any idea of a timeline for getting things back to normal?
Oh, no, it's far too soon for that. Our priority as a board at the moment is to support our staff getting whatever services running again that we can manage, either on-site or off-site, and making sure we can keep our staff, because there's going to be a lot of work for them to do. Some of the courses, some of the activities have probably going to have to be postponed for a while. Some are shifting, but our immediate objective is to keep the services going, and we won't know about the rebuild until a little bit further down the track, when insurance information comes through and it can go out for assessment and repair.
All right. Well, I know it's been a tragic couple of days for the Military Hills community, but all power to you and your staff for getting things back up and running down there. Thanks very much for talking to us at Mainland TV.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Householders in Nelson and Tasman are again being asked to look for great white butterfly caterpillars and eggs in their gardens, following the first reports of the pest showing up in Richmond earlier this month. So far, great white butterfly caterpillars have been found at 6 Richmond properties. Great white butterfly caterpillars and eggs are found mostly in clusters on plants they favour, particularly nasturtium, honesty and brassica vegetables, including broccoli and cabbage. The caterpillars are speckled black and greyish green with 3 yellow lines along their bodies, and the tiny yellow eggs are in clusters of 30 to 100. Doc's Motueka area manager Martin Rodd said there'd been a good response from Nelson Tasman residents to request to look for butterfly infestations and report sightings. Mr Rodd said there's been a steady flow of calls over the holiday period as people have been out working in their gardens and have spotted the caterpillars and eggs on plants. The adult great white butterfly looks similar to the small white butterfly, although it is approximately twice the size and is easier to tell the difference between them by their caterpillars and eggs. The great white caterpillars and eggs are mostly in clusters, whereas those of the small butterfly caterpillar are mostly found singly. The great white butterfly caterpillar's appearance changes through 5 growth stages. When very young, the tiny caterpillars are yellowish and shiny. The dark spots begin to appear on the body later. In the latter stages, the caterpillar is speckled greyish green and black and has 3 yellow lines along its body. Larger caterpillars have a pale hair on their body, and when fully grown, the caterpillars are around 50 millimetres long. The Department of Conservation are asking residents to look for and report any sightings of great white butterfly caterpillars and eggs by phoning 0800 80 9966. After the break here on Mainland Television News, Nelson Museum closes its research facility temporarily. Nelsonians feature strongly in the newly announced Blackjacks team, and an invitation to local hunters.
G'day, I'm Andy from Circle Automotive at 133 St Vincent Street, up the road from Harvey Norman. We're your one-stop automotive repair shop. From Warrant of Fitnesses to engine rebuilding, minis to buses, we do the lot. Book your vehicle in for a Warrant of Fitness and service combo, mention this advert and you won't pay a single cent for the Warrant of Fitness check. So come down and see me and my friendly staff for all your mechanical repairs and needs.
How happy are you with the quality of your digital prints? And how safe are those precious memories stored on your computer? Hi, I'm Simon from Nelson City Cameras. Quality 6x4 prints are easy using one of our 8 photo kiosks. Join our loyalty club and print 30 photos or more, and the photos are only 39 cents each. As a member, you also get 50% off enlargements and other great benefits. But wait, there's even more. Our user-friendly kiosks allow you to create photo books, photo gifts, and even canvases. If you need a digital camera, binocular, tripod, we have a great range and selection, and our advice is free. We have a fantastic range of photo albums and picture frames to suit your needs and your budget. So print your memories, don't hide them, relive them. Come in and meet the team at Nelson City Cameras, Nelson's most experienced camera shop. 25 years serving Nelson.
FAV Mobile Solutions are the scooter, walker and wheelchair specialists for the Nelson region. Call in and see the huge range available. Take one for a free test drive and pick up your free booklet guide. They also provide a rescue service if you ever get a puncture or a flat battery. Come in and see Robin and the friendly team at FAV Mobile Solutions in the Richmond Free Car Park opposite the Old Town Hall. Welcome back, you're watching Mainland Television News. I'm Phil Hawes. Nelson Provincial Museum's research facility at Isle Park will be closed to the public for at least the next week. The closure comes as the result of a detailed engineering evaluation from Opus International Consultants. The evaluation has found that the building, which was built in the 1970s with some later additions, doesn't meet the baseline of new building standards. The Tasman Bay's Heritage Trust Board has requested further information about options for the building, which it hopes to be able to consider at its next meeting at the end of January. Board Chairman Terry Horn and CEO of Nelson Provincial Museum, Peter Millwood, spoke to staff who have been asked to work from home or in one of the other museum facilities in the meantime. Mr Millwood said that the safety of staff and the public was the museum's first concern. Local hunters are being invited to apply to fly into the Tasman wilderness area to hunt during the autumn raw deer hunting season. It's the third year in which the raw wilderness hunting opportunity has been offered, and DOC's Motueka area manager Martin Rodd said the hunting helps to manage the impact of browsing animals such as deer on the area's native vegetation. Numbers of deer and other introduced animals are high in the Tasman wilderness area, and Martin Rodd says recreational hunting is helpful in reducing the animals' numbers. Hunters can apply for 13 hunting blocks in the wilderness area in the heart of the Kaharangi National Park during a limited hunting season that will run from the 28th of March through until the 13th of April. Information and application forms are available on the Department of Conservation's website. That's www.doc.govt.nz. Blocks will be allocated in a ballot that will take place on the 27th of February. Mapua Wharf is currently off limits to public vehicles, with a pedestrian-only zone being trialled. The pedestrian zone means that there will be no casual vehicle parking or through traffic at the wharf, with the exception of boaties using the launching ramp and commercial delivery vehicles. The pedestrians-only zone will remain in place until the 7th of February. Plans for the redevelopment of the Suter Gallery are about to be the subject of a public presentation so that Nelsonians can have a say into what's going to happen next. A public presentation is being held at the Suter Theatre at 6 o'clock on Wednesday the 13th of February to outline the next step in the development, which will be the resource consent process. The resource consent application for the redevelopment project has recently been lodged with the Nelson City Council, and once notified there will be a period for submissions, and it's expected a resource consent hearing will be held in March before an independent commissioner. The redevelopment plans remain on display at the Suter Theatre in the meantime. Nelsonians will again feature strongly in the recently named Blackjacks New Zealand squad for the Trans-Tasman Bowl Series against Australia in Auckland coming up in March. The New Zealand selectors have named 3 teams, an under-18, a development squad and a senior side to take on Australia, with 3 local bowlers named in the senior team. The 3 are Val Smith, Joe Edwards and Shannon McElroy. National Bowls coach and former Nelsonian Dave Edwards says he expects this year's Trans-Tasman bout to be great entertainment, with the 3 teams competing at the same venue at the same time. And finally in this edition, the final stage in selecting host cities for FIFA's Under-20 World Cup New Zealand 2015 began this week with the arrival of a FIFA inspection group from Zurich on Wednesday here in Nelson. The group are visiting 9 cities around the country that have put in bids to host matches. The initial process to choose cities began back in June 2011 when the 13 cities that hosted matches during the Rugby World Cup were contacted for expressions of interest, followed by a formal request for proposals in July of that year. Proposals were received from 9 cities around the country and the evaluation process then began. The cities and stadiums that are being considered by the FIFA inspection group are Christchurch's AMI Stadium, Dunedin's Forsyth Bar Stadium, Nelson's Trafalgar Park, Wellington's Westpac Stadium, Napier's McLean Park, in Auckland it's North Harbour Stadium, New Plymouth's Yarrow Stadium and Waikato Stadium in Hamilton, as well as Toll Stadium in Whangarei. Following the visits and input from the local organising committees, the FIFA officials will then make their final decision on which cities will host the tournament. It's expected that the decision will be announced within the next 8 weeks. After the break here on Mainland Television News, a check of the weather word across the weekend and what's coming up around our town.
Hi, Gus Bulens of Gustav's Clothing for Men on Trafalgar Street. I'd like to invite all the people of Nelson, Tasman and international and local visitors to come and check out our brand new refurbished store, which is now chock full of the latest international and New Zealand brands. From France, Lacoste; from the UK, Ben Sherman; RM Williams; from Sweden, Gant; from the US, Calvin Klein jeans; and from New Zealand, Rembrandt suits, jackets and trousers; Cutler, Berlin and snowy fine merino knitwear. So come on into Gustav's on Trafalgar Street and we'll look after you.
Waimea Telecommunications, specializing in free-to-air satellite TV, computer cabling, telephone systems, wireless and broadband internet installations. Call Julian Toon on 544-4203.
If you have a digital TV and you're watching Mainland Now, you should be able to switch between the digital and analog TV channels, including Mainland TV. Most digital TVs can switch between the digital and analog TV channels. If you need help tuning into the new digital TV channels, please give us a call. Nelson TV and Video Services, 41 Halifax Street, Millers Acre Car Park.
Welcome back, you're tuned to Mainland Television News. I'm Phil Hawes. Right, let's see what's in store for us weather-wise across the weekend.
Always take the weather everywhere you go. You always take the weather with you everywhere you go. You always take the weather with you. Well, there's a small boat made of China. It's going nowhere on the mantelpiece. Well, do I lie like a lounge room lizard, or do I sing like a bird released?
Welcome back. Let's see what's going on around the region, shall we? First of all, the official ceremony for the Great Taste Cycle Trail is coming up Saturday this weekend. The first stage of the Great Taste Cycle Trail will soon extend out through Motueka to Rewaka and Kaiteri and also up the Motueka Valley, and it will all officially open on Saturday at the Waimea Cycle Bridge near Richmond. Start time for the event is 11 a.m. Going to be a barbecue and refreshments. Also a toll will operate on the bridge for a gold coin donation on the day. Riders can then go on to explore the food and beverage trail further for a late lunch or a cruisy afternoon, then book a cycle shuttle for later in the day to return to their starting point. The Motueka Teddy Bears Picnic is on Sunday this weekend, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. You're invited to bring your teddy to Dex Reserve in Motueka to enjoy a picnic, face painting, bouncy castles, sports and a whole lot more. It's described as free fun for the whole family. The Adam Chamber Music Festival comes up next Thursday and runs through until Saturday the 9th of February. The Adam Chamber Music Festival is New Zealand's leading chamber music event featuring a range of international and leading New Zealand performers. Now, full details can be found at the website www.music.org.nz. Various venues around the region are being used, including Nelson's Christchurch Cathedral, Selwyn Place, Trafalgar Street and the Nelson School of Music. Tickets and bookings and entry vary and go from free through to $75. And finally, if you're heading out into the bush, how about grabbing yourself a locator beacon for as little as $20 for a weekend, and that runs Friday to Monday. If you get lost in the bush or get injured, help will quickly be at hand, and it will also save hours of search time. Info and beacons are available at Rollo's on Bridge Street, Coppins High Street, Motueka, Takaka Fuel and Fishing, also Farewell Spit Eco Tours, St Arnold's Store and other places around the region. You can find out where by heading to the website Nelson Area Locator Beacon Trust.org.nz. And that is this edition of Mainland Television News. Thanks very much for joining us. Please take care on the roads over the weekend. On behalf of the team here, wishing you a safe and enjoyable one, I'm Phil Hawes for Mainland Television News.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
LTEX Coatings Limited, your expert team for all marine and industrial protective coatings. Come in and talk to Ray Marcus and Ian to get the best price in town. LTEX Coatings Limited, 79 Vickerman Street, Port Nelson, or call them on 5468 375.